Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX with me, Devika Devan. Tonight, viewers, we look at a diplomatic shift that is rewriting India's European playbook. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has landed in Oslo, Norway. On the surface, it's a picturesque Scandinavian visit, but strip away the pleasantries and you find a massive geopolitical recalibration. This is the first time an Indian Prime Minister has set foot in Norway in 43 years. And what you see on your screens are visuals of him getting the highest civilian honor. Imagine 43 years later, a head of state from India has gone to Norway and he's already been awarded and accorded the highest civilian honor. The last time such a visit happened, Indira Gandhi was in office. For over 4 decades, viewers, New Delhi essentially looked past Oslo. Why? Because during the Cold War, India's non-aligned stance skewed heavily towards Moscow, while Norway was a founding member of the NATO. In the decades that followed, India's foreign policy engine was naturally consumed by immediate neighbors, Washington, the Middle East, and the economic giants of Western Europe. Northern Europe, with its small populations, was dismissed as a beautiful but strategically low priority region. But times have changed, and New Delhi has realized that it can no longer ignore the immense economic and technological muscle concentrated in the Nordic regions. This visit is the ultimate bridge-building exercise, highlighted by the 3rd India-Nordic Summit, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi is meeting leaders from across Scandinavia. The timing is critical. We are watching a global energy crisis unfold, trade routes are volatile, and India is pursuing an aggressive, multi-aligned foreign policy. Norway is no longer a luxury destination on the map, it is a vital necessity. So what exactly does India want from Norway? It boils down to a clear tactical agenda: green technology, the blue economy, and massive capital. First, consider the money. Last year, there was a landmark India EFTA trade deal officially kicked into gear. Norway belongs to this European Free Trade Association bloc, and the deal comes with a blockbuster promise: $100 billion in investment into India over 15 years. Norway happens to sit on the world's largest sovereign wealth fund, the Government Pension Fund Global, valued at a staggering $1.4 trillion. It already holds nearly $28 billion in the Indian capital market, and New Delhi wants to channel that massive reservoir directly into India's domestic manufacturing and infrastructure boom. Secondly, there is the green transition. Norway is an energy powerhouse. Ironically, it is one of the world's major exporters of oil and gas, yet it leads the planet in domestic green technology. India has set audacious climate goals, and to get there, it needs Norwegian expertise in green hydrogen, offshore wind, and carbon capture. This isn't just about saving the planet, it's about securing India's future energy independence amid a hyper-volatile global oil market. Then, of course, comes the blue economy and maritime trade. Both nations are deep ocean powers. Norway boasts an elite end-to-end maritime cluster, from advanced ship design and automated equipment to specialized shipyards. India, conversely, is a global shipping powerhouse, a dominant force in ship recycling, and a massive provider of seafaring talent. By fusing Norway's deep tech maritime engineering with India's digital capability and scale, the two nations are looking to completely revolutionize green shipping and sustainable ocean management. Finally, of course, there is a distinct geopolitical layer: the Arctic. As polar ice melts, the Arctic is rapidly transforming into the world's newest strategic frontier, opening up shorter trade routes and access to vast, untapped natural resources. Norway is literally the gateway to this region. Though it's established Arctic policy, India wants a permanent seat at the table for climate research and resource diplomacy, and a strong partnership with Oslo is the perfect vehicle to secure it. But make no mistake, viewers, this is not a one-way street. Norway needs India just as much. Oslo is looking at a volatile, shifting Europe, and it recognizes that its economic future depends on diversifying away from authoritarian, quote-unquote, regimes like Russia and China. India offers Norway the ultimate prize, the world's fastest growing major market, an insatiable appetite for green tech, and a massive, highly skilled digital workforce. For Norwegian companies looking to scale up their innovations, India provides the unmatched size, demographic dividend, and democratic stability that they desperately need to secure their own supply chains. What we're witnessing, viewers, in Oslo is the shedding of Cold War hesitation. India is executing a sharp strategic pivot towards Northern Europe, realizing that the key to its future energy, tech, and economic security might just run through the North Sea. But what really are the big takeaways? We take this conversation forward. I have with me Ambassador Veena Sikri, former diplomat, Major General A.K. Sivach, defense expert, Professor Anshu Joshi, foreign affairs expert, and Adat Kothari, international affairs expert with us. Let me begin with Ambassador Sikri. Ambassador Sikri, in your perspective, ma'am, why this visit now and why is it so crucial?
Well, I think it is strategically a very important visit. You have highlighted some of the reasons why it is strategically important. But I think I would like to highlight the Arctic region. And I think this is today and in the coming years, the most security-wise and shipping-wise, it's the most interesting and important region of the world. We already have, as we all know, the Chennai-Vladivostok corridor, and a sea corridor, and this is now being extended to Murmansk, also in Russia. But then from there, it goes on to the Nordic countries. And it is very important that in this Arctic Council, we know that Russia is a member. It's the only non-NATO member of the Arctic Council. And India has been an observer in the Arctic Council since 2013. We have an Himadri sea station there. We have an underwater observatory there. We have a lot of research work there. But today, in addition to all the scientific research, there is also the access to a large number of additional energy supplies because of the fast melting Arctic ice. And I think all of this brings into great focus the importance of India's cooperation with Norway, the importance of this visit of our Prime Minister to Norway. And I think this is going to be one of the most significant aspects. You're quite right that Norway too sees great value in its relationship with India. They've announced this $100 billion investment over 15 years, creating up to 1 million jobs for the youth in India. So this is indeed very important that Norway is willing to do this investment because the significance of their economic relations with India, they give the highest importance to that. We know that India and Norway, among 3 other countries, have concluded the EFTA, which became effective, signed in 2024, but it became went into operation last year. And this includes Norway and Liechtenstein and Iceland. This is a very important free trade agreement, the first for India with a European group of countries. But EFTA attaches the highest importance to this. The Prime Minister of Norway, when he spoke about this, he mentioned it in great detail. And I think the government of Norway, the people of Norway have given our Prime Minister the highest respect and the warmest welcome. They've awarded him the highest civilian honor of Norway, which is a great tribute to the regard and high respect in which our Prime Minister is held all over the world, but certainly in Norway. And I think this is the large number of honors that our Prime Minister has received. This adds to that, and it also is a very significant one because I think that in the coming years, the India-Norway relationship is going to matter more and more. We also know that the India-Nordic Summit is going to take place, which is going to include the other countries as well, Finland and Sweden and Iceland and others. And I think that this too is significant because this India-Nordic Summit, the third of its kind, the first was held in 2018, then in 2022, and now in 2026. It should have been held last year, but because of the Operation Sindoor related issues, it could not be held. And all the countries are looking forward to a strong positive outcome of this India-Nordic Summit. Our Prime Minister has made some important statements during his stay, the few hours that he has already spent in Norway. He spoke very significantly of the need for dialogue and diplomacy to end the conflicts in Ukraine and in West Asia. In particular, he said that military action is no solution and that military action is not going to help at all. And I think this is significant that he should be saying this and focusing on dialogue and diplomacy at a time when we are hearing from President Trump that they are actively preparing for another round of military attacks on Iran, and I think this would have devastating consequences. And our Prime Minister has been very significantly straightforward in pointing to the need for dialogue and diplomacy and not for continuing military action. I think all these reasons taken together show that the prospects for India-Norway relation, India-Nordic relation is very high. Green shipbuilding is a very important factor. India needs to build these Arctic capable vessels, ships, whether we build them in India or in the Nordic countries. This is very important. Certainly technical assistance from the Nordic countries would be very important in this. And I think that, it's significant that right now Russia's relations with Europe are not very good, and we know that there are two new members of the NATO, Finland and Sweden, and this has made the Arctic Council a very different body from what it originally was. But I think that India being an observer and the functioning of the Arctic Council is going to play a very important role in the coming years. And certainly it gives India an opportunity to participate in a body where you have NATO members, you have Russia, and you have some non-NATO members as well. So I think this is a very significant aspect of the visit. I think on trade we'll see a great output, and there'll be many important decisions taken during this visit.
All right, Major General A.K. Sivach, bringing you into the conversation, sir, your perspective. Why exactly is this visit crucial at this point in time?
Devika, first of all, as it is what Ambassador has said and what you have initially articulated. See, as far as Norway is concerned, it is considered a gateway to Arctic. Now, the whole geopolitics and geo-economic is changing because Arctic is melting very fast. New sea lanes are coming now, especially the shortest which is going from Europe to US, and now this has changed the whole complex, and that's why Norway plays a very important role. You see, remember the India-Nordic third summit will be also there. It will not only Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark and Iceland. And out of these two countries, Finland and Sweden were not part of NATO before Russia-Ukraine war. They basically came to NATO after this war because they wanted to remain neutral. So as far as Prime Minister is concerned, first and foremost point of view, from military point of view, he again touched upon this issue that dialogue and diplomacy is the only way forward. You can't find a solution to any problem in the battlefield. Now he's spoken one about Russia, Ukraine, and also spoken about what's happening in Middle East, because very correctly Ambassador has told that there is a likelihood of US and Israel again attacking on Iran. And remember, what is happening is the economy of the whole world has been now in doldrums. Food, fuel, fertilizer has now increased the prices tremendously, manifold. But all said and done, Norway to us is very important. 4 issues. One is green technology, then is blue economy, and another thing is also on science and technology. And remember that whatever happened in Arctic, it has a direct impact on India. This has impact on our monsoons and also on our food security. What's changing in Arctic will have a long-term ramification, especially in India, because you will find it, the weather changing and the monsoon pattern changing in time to come. Now, as far as investment is concerned, no denying the fact that Norway has got the maximum pension fund. Almost $30 billion has been already invested in Indian market. India will like to invest more because India gives a prospect, because this is a country which is fastest growing economy. It is a democratic, a peaceful country, and Norway finds it that it has a huge opportunity. I think Norway will also play a major role. So overall, I suppose this visit is going to be a game changer, and very rightly brought out. First time in 43 years the Prime Minister is visiting there. He has been already given the highest civil honor And at the same time, what India plays a major role is, India is a one country which is a democratic country and also a spokesperson, you can say a champion of the global south. And that's what all these Nordic countries are considering as a plus point. So I suppose that this is going to be a game changer, and two things will stand out: green technology, blue economy, and also our relationship increasing time to come, so that it becomes a win-win situation. Devika.
All right. I want to bring in Adit into the conversation as well. Adit, I want to understand from you, as I also mentioned earlier, it's not a one-way street here. Of course, Norway and some of the other Northern European countries are becoming more and more strategic for India. But at the same time, there has to be a reason why we've decided to take this visit 43 years later. And on the Prime Minister's arrival, he's been awarded, accorded the highest civilian honor. So there's a signaling there coming in from an important, and to be very honest, a very, very rich country like Norway as well, that somewhere they do require stable partners like India, because Europe itself has become so volatile. Adit, I'll just request you to unmute yourself, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I was just saying that, it's just not Europe which has become volatile. I think if you look at the global nexus at this point, from the time Donald Trump has started his second term, he started the second term with basically antagonizing all of the so-called Western world partners and allies. And as a consequence, that has pushed the call for multipolarity, which is why we saw the India-EU FTA deal expedited as a consequence. We saw the India-UK deal get stitched up. And what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz at this point, which is basically choking up roughly about 20% of the global energy and thereby leading to the energy crisis, it has become quintessential that Prime Minister Modi basically not only realized his actual necessity from this point perspective, so what India requires at this point from an energy security perspective, but also what India would require from a future perspective. So whereas you have UAE and companies like say the Yara company in Norway, which are basically helping India secure its present security needs. Again, from a future perspective, you have all of the green ammonia and the sort of hydropower and the sort of wind power firms that India is getting into the MOUs with, which are going to provide further security from a long-term perspective. So, this five-nation trip is a very well-planned and a very pragmatic trip which has been planned out to basically not only secure India's present but also the future, and understand that in this volatile geopolitics of this day and age, India needs to be self-sufficient when it comes down to its energy requirements, because what is happening is that the input cost for agriculture in India is growing up massively, because at the end of the day, urea is a byproduct of natural gas. Now, the moment natural gas goes up in price, urea prices will automatically go up, and as a consequence, that will have a direct ramifications on the agricultural produce of the India, thereby leading to more inflation and more agricultural issues. So it's important that green ammonia becomes a security, a national security from that perspective, and also you have your LPG and LNG. I believe that only yesterday we had the first LNG shipment from Norway, which actually landed in India, and Equinor, which is one of the largest producers in Europe, will ensure that that 15-year MOU that they have signed up with Deepak Enterprises will help India secure its energy requirements. Devika.
Right, absolutely. Let me then leave the last word with Professor Anshu Joshi. Professor Joshi, what are your now big expectations in the coming years, or perhaps in the next decade, as far as our relationship with some of the countries, particularly the Northern European countries, is concerned? Yes, we've had that historic trade deal, but a lot of it, of course, ultimately depends on what India truly does make of it.
Right, Devika. First and foremost, thank you so much for having me on this show and allowing me to speak on this very significant topic. We all are observing a flux in geopolitics at present, and we all know that how after COVID-19, Russia-Ukraine war started. If this was not enough, the conflict in West Asia started. And we all can see how energy supplies have been disrupted, supply chains in all areas have been disrupted, how the entire world is facing the repercussions of what is happening in West Asia at present, and particularly how the Strait of Hormuz has been choked. Amid this all, India paves a way for positive diplomacy through its approach of all aligned issue-based engagements. And India also shows to the world that how bilaterally as well as multilaterally, optics-based as well as only reflection-based relationships can be transformed into tangible outcomes-based relationships, and that is what we have been showcasing to the world by elevating our bilateral relations to strategic partnerships with almost 30 plus countries around the world. And having said that, in this series, our Prime Minister is on a historic 5 nations visit from UAE. He went to Netherlands, then he visited Sweden, now he is in Norway. And taking Norway as a case study of how India has been elevating consistently its strategic partnership with Northern European countries with a focus on green technology, trade relations, as well as Arctic cooperation and especially blue economy. We can see that how the third India-Nordic Summit would also be hosted in Oslo, and the focused areas remain green strategic partnership. So that's where India has upgraded its relationship with Norway to a green strategic partnership, wherein we are focusing on clean technology, circular economy, renewable energy, and blue economy investments. Norway is a very important part of EFTA. Other countries are Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Switzerland. So capitalizing the recently put into practice 100 billion USD trade and economic partnership agreement with these EFTA countries. The talks would also focus on accelerating jobs, investments, and workers' mobility in future, Devika. And then when we look from promoting peace and security's point of view, these countries are the like-minded nations that also accept philosophy of Indian foreign policy that talks about Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam and promoting democratic values. So that would be focused for next couple of years as well. And our Prime Minister has been conferred with the highest civilian award of Norway. That shows Norway's trust in what India has been doing through its positive diplomacy. And when our Prime Minister would be joined by other leaders of Nordic region, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, and Iceland, the focus would be on novice technologies like AI. So that would be a primary area of focus for next couple of years, Devika. Digital public infrastructure, wherein India has shown to the world how it has digitalized its humongously popularized country. So that's where our future would be focused on. Apart from that, green technology, green transition, renewable energy, and how can we all contribute to climate change containment, because that's a key area of concern for these nations. They all are like Norway is a gateway to Arctic region, and now Arctic as well as blue economy is India's focused prioritized area. So maritime security also remains a prioritized area, focused area on the cards, wherein shipping and how can we promote strategic Arctic cooperation would definitely be discussed and would take the place in the list of the items for future, not only between India and Norway, but between these northern European countries and India.
Right, absolutely. On that note, I've run out of time, but I thank all of our guests for joining us on this very important international development. With that, viewers, a very quick break.